Marriage, in Islam, is not simply a social contract or a formality. It is an act of worship, a sacred bond, a spiritual milestone that many believers hope to achieve. But sometimes the wait is long, the signs are unclear, and hearts grow impatient. So how do you know if this long-awaited moment is finally arriving? And above all, what happens when Allah really wants to marry you? In this video, we won't talk about seduction techniques, lists of criteria, or idealized dreams. No. We'll focus on what spirituality teaches, on those profound and subtle signs that many experience, but without always understanding them. Because yes, when Allah wants to unite you with someone, He prepares your heart, your environment, and even your path. But be careful. The idea here is not to overinterpret every event or to force things. The intention is to recognize the signs of His wisdom, to open our eyes to what He alone orchestrates in the invisible. For everything happens in its own time, according to His will, and not according to our calculations. Remember this verse from the Quran. It is not given to a soul to know what it will acquire tomorrow, nor does anyone know in what land it will die. Surah Luqman 31-34. In other words, you can pray, hope, prepare. But it is Allah who decides the moment. And when that moment arrives, you will feel it. Not necessarily through spectacular miracles, but through simple, clear and soothing things. So sit back, breathe a little, and open your heart. Here are 5 things that happen when Allah truly wants you to get married. 1. A sudden peace in your heart. There comes a time when, without really understanding why, you wake up with a strange peace in your heart. Not euphoria, not romantic excitement, but a deep sense of serenity, as if something had aligned within you without your having caused it. Before that, perhaps marriage had been worrying you. You thought about your age, your situation, the lack of options, all those but what ifs, all those what ifs. And then one day, without any particular event, that weight begins to lift from your heart. The questions are still there, but the fear is no longer the same. Your heart becomes receptive. This kind of peace, this sakina, doesn't come out of nowhere. It's one of the first signs that something deep down is changing, a sign from Allah. The Quran speaks precisely of this particular peace. It is He who has sent down sakina, tranquility, to the hearts of the believers, that they may have faith in their faith. Surah Al-Fajr 48 verse 4. When Allah wants to guide a heart to a new stage, He often begins by calming it. He gives it this peace that requires no logic. It is like an inner support, a discreet but constant light. The Prophet himself experienced this tranquility when he trusted in Allah, even in the most tense situations. And in the Islamic spiritual tradition, inner peace is an indicator of sincerity and alignment with divine will. Imaginary testimony. I no longer expected it. Take the example of Yasmin, 34. She had been making dua for years. She had tried apps, met people, been disappointed, sometimes humiliated. At one point, she almost gave up. And then suddenly, she stopped struggling internally. Not because she was resigned, but because she understood that it wasn't up to her. She says, I don't know how to explain it, but it was as if Allah had taken control again. I just felt that my heart was ready, even if I didn't know for whom. A few months later, an old family friend was proposed to her. He didn't meet her expectations at the time, but he was aligned on the essentials: faith, stability, sincerity. They are married today. Was the calm she felt a sign? Perhaps. But what is certain is that this calm allowed her to recognize the right person without fear or agitation. Your heart is a spiritual barometer.
Your heart is like a spiritual instrument. It can be noisy, filled with doubts, anxieties, and comparisons. But when Allah wants to open a door for you, He begins by freeing you from this noise. He purifies your intention. There is no rest in this life except in contentment with the decree of Allah. Quote from a Muslim sage: when your heart begins to rest on Allah, truly, not just in words, then you can receive things more clearly. And that's when you realize that you don't just want to get married to be like everyone else or because it's your age. You want to get married to worship Allah together, to build, to protect yourself in a halal environment. This inner maturity is a very powerful sign. Caution: this is not a passing emotion. Don't confuse this peace with a simple emotion. It's not the relief of thinking about someone you like. It's not the joy of receiving a flattering message. The peace that Allah places in your heart is stable, even in the face of doubt. You may not have all the answers, but you are no longer consumed by fear. You move forward calmly, and this tranquility will allow you to recognize good opportunities, say no to bad ones without regret, perform istikhara without tensing up, accept Allah's timing with gentleness. How can you cultivate this peace? Even if this tranquility comes from Allah, you can invite it through certain attitudes. Make more du'as, especially in the last part of the night. Be honest in your intention. Why do you want to get married? Detach yourself from social pressure and reconnect with your own path. Read stories of blessed marriages to remind yourself that it's never too late. And above all, remember that your heart is in the hands of Allah. He alone knows when it's ready. Your role is to keep that heart alive, connected, and sincere. 2. Obstacles disappear. What seemed impossible suddenly becomes possible. Sometimes you've tried everything. You've talked to your parents, you've prayed, you've considered options, and nothing. Everything is blocked. Discussions don't get anywhere. People back away. There's always some detail that gets in the way. Finances, culture, distance, timing. You're tired, you're starting to think that maybe it's not for you. And then one day, without you having changed a thing, things start to open up. Your parents, who were firmly opposed to a relationship, become curiously open. The person who said, "It's not the right time," returns with seriousness and clarity. And financial difficulties suddenly find a logical and unexpected solution. Even the timing aligns, as if everything is guided. This is one of the most powerful signs that Allah is removing barriers. This is no coincidence, it's a decree in motion. When Allah wills, He opens what was closed. Allah says in the Quran, "And if He intends good for you, none can withhold His bounty." Surah Fatir 35:2. When He truly wants something to happen to you, whether it's marriage or something else, nothing and no one can stop it. Not people, not circumstances, not even you. And conversely, if He wants to protect you from something, nothing can force it. That's why in the Muslim faith, we learn not to force things. We make causes, but we don't persist. Because what is maktoob, written, will reach you, even if everything seems blocked today. The role of tawakkul, active trust. Tawakkul isn't about sitting around waiting for a miracle. It's about doing your best with sincerity, then letting Allah open what needs to be opened. And often, it's when you let go that things become unblocked. A hadith says, "If you were to trust in Allah as He should, He would provide for you as He provides for a bird. It leaves in the morning hungry and returns satisfied." Tirmidhi. In the context of marriage, this means you take healthy steps. You don't disobey Allah to achieve your goal. You remain dignified, steadfast, and aligned, and then you accept that only He can open what is closed. Fictitious testimony. Nothing worked until it did. Take the story of Muhammad, 29. He had proposed to a pious, serious sister, whom he greatly respected. Everything was going well, except that the two families were opposed due to cultural differences. They had abandoned the idea. 2 years later, Muhammad no longer even thought about her. He had decided to turn the page and focus on something else. But Allah had another plan. It was the sister's father who one day discreetly contacted Muhammad again through a relative. "I don't know why, but I feel like you're the right person for my daughter." What he had tried to force before presented itself to him when he was no longer forcing it. Lesson from the prophets: an obstacle is a test, not a rejection. In the lives of many prophets, Allah first placed immense obstacles before opening sublime doors. Ibrahim, was rejected by his people, isolated and threatened. But Allah gave him blessed descendants and the title of close friend, Khalil. Musa, had speech impediments, a troubled past and powerful enemies. But he was the one whom Allah chose to free a people. The Prophet, rejected in Mecca, had to leave his city and found in Medina a people who welcomed him as a leader and guide. Morality: the fact that things are blocked today is not proof that Allah has said no to you. Sometimes it's just a delay to purify yourself, or a better door that will open. Metaphor: doors that open without knocking. Imagine walking down a hallway full of closed doors. You try 1, 2, 10. Nothing. You despair. Then suddenly, without even knocking, a door opens by itself. You look inside. It's exactly what you needed. Not necessarily what you originally wanted, but what you truly needed. That's how divine wisdom works. Allah brings you to the place where your heart, your future, your faith and your happiness meet. How do you know if a removed obstacle is a sign from Allah? Here are some pointers. The path becomes clearer without you forcing it. You feel peace in your heart, not just excitement. What was unclear becomes clear. You receive natural confirmations without seeking them. Be careful. Not all obstacles that arise necessarily lead to a good marriage. But when Allah wants you to be with someone or something, things naturally align. 3. You meet someone different. And it's no coincidence. One day, someone enters your life. But it's not like other times. It's not a meeting that makes you fantasize or run away. It's not a relationship that distracts you. It's not a connection devoid of intention. It's someone who seems aligned, sincere, clear, different. And above all, he or she is there for real reasons. There are no games, no vagueness, no emotional chaos. There is respect, a clear intention, a desire to honor the relationship within a healthy and spiritual framework. You ask yourself, is this a sign? Is Allah finally showing me the right person? Maybe. But let's take a closer look. The real different. Alignment, not perfection. When you meet someone different, it doesn't mean they're perfect. But you sense that this person is not like the others, for deeply spiritual reasons. They want to know you in a halal setting. They don't confuse you emotionally. They encourage you to stay close to Allah, not away from Him. They speak about the future with maturity and fear of Allah. They don't rely on charm, but on clarity. This isn't a romanticized romance. It's a relationship that makes you grow, not exhaust you. And you feel this difference even if you can't yet explain it. An effect of divine mercy. Allah says in the Quran regarding marriage, And among his signs is that he has created for you from yourselves mates, that you may dwell in tranquility with them. And he has placed between you affection, mawadda, and mercy, rahmah. Surah Ar-Rum 30:21. This verse isn't talking about intense passion or love at first sight. It's talking about serenity, affection, and mercy. And these are exactly the emotions you feel when Allah places someone truly compatible with your faith in your path. You aren't addicted to this person. You aren't afraid of losing them. You don't forget yourself. On the contrary, you become clearer, more balanced, more connected to your goal. How do you know if it's not just an illusion? Let's be honest. It's easy to be mistaken. Attraction can disguise warning signs. Emotional deprivation can make us idealize someone. So here are some questions to ask yourself. 1. Is this person encouraging you to disobey Allah? If so, it's not a good sign. Being truly different lifts you up, not toward disobedience or compromise. 2. Do you sense clarity in their intentions? A serious person will talk about projects, values, prayer, and the future, not just vague feelings or time to spend together. 3. Is your heart at peace after the istikhara prayer? Istikhara doesn't always bring dreams or visual signs, but it often provides inner peace or a gradual withdrawal if it's not good. 4. Does this person respect your boundaries? If from the start, she pushes you to cross boundaries, even with halal justifications, this is not the right foundation. Islamic foundations of a healthy dating. Here's what Islam encourages when it comes to getting to know each other with a view to marriage. A clear intention from the start. We don't test relationships to see how they go. We talk with a serious goal in mind. Respect for boundaries. No flirting, no secret meetings, no destructive emotional attachment. The presence of a third party or a family setting. This protects both parties and avoids ambiguity. The istikhara prayer, to ask Allah if there is khair, good, in this person for you. Dialogue on the real issues, faith, outlook on life, expectations, values, religious practices. Marriage in Islam begins with clarity, not secrecy. Fictitious testimony. He didn't look like me, but he completed me. Sarah, 27, had always imagined a man exactly like her. Same culture, same humor, same background. And then she met Amin, calm, discreet, and composed. Different from her in many ways, but very close to Allah. Very modest and extremely respectful. She says, he wasn't the person I would have chosen based on my own criteria, but he was the person Allah sent me to balance me. When we talked, I felt safe. I didn't need to play a role. That's when I knew. That's the difference. Not necessarily the one you expected, but the one that's exactly what your soul needs. 4. Your prayers become clearer when your heart begins to speak to Allah differently. There comes a time in your journey when your way of praying changes. Before, your du'as for marriage were vague. Oh Allah, send me someone. I want to get married, but I don't know how. They were sometimes mechanical, sometimes desperate. You asked, but without a clear vision, without certainty, maybe even without peace. And then, one day, your prayers become precise. You know exactly what you want to ask for. You are more sincere. You are no longer asking for just a person. You are asking for a relationship that brings you closer to Him. You no longer speak with agitation, but with maturity. You no longer beg with fear, but with confidence. And above all, you begin to feel that someone is listening to you. A profound spiritual change, from confusion to clarity. This change in prayer is no accident. It is one of the signs that Allah is refining your intention. He is educating you, shaping you internally, so that your heart asks for what it truly needs, and not what your ego once desired. Perhaps you love something, but it is bad for you, and Allah knows, but you do not know. Surah Al-Baqarah 2-16. This verse also applies to marriage. How many times have you asked for a specific person, and Allah has said no out of mercy? And how many times have you wept for someone, without realizing that they would have turned you away from Him? The day your prayers cease to be dictated by emotional emptiness and begin to come from a peaceful heart, that day, Allah begins to respond differently. The istikhara, prayer, a spiritual GPS. When your heart becomes more lucid, you feel the need to perform the istikhara prayer, prayer of consultation, not just as a formality, but as a true act of total surrender to Allah. O Allah, if you know that this matter is good for my religion, my life, and my destiny, make it easy for me. And then something changes, not necessarily through a dream or a divine voice, but through a gradual calming or a clear but peaceful closure. Note, the istikhara does not always provide a visual sign, but if, after praying, things suddenly become fluid, obvious, aligned, or, on the contrary, blocked with clarity, that is probably your answer. When Allah begins to answer you subtly, there is a mystery in the way Allah answers du'as. Sometimes He does it through unexpected words, spoken by someone who is completely unaware of what you are going through. Sometimes a verse suddenly speaks to you, as if it were written for you. Sometimes a peaceful dream guides you, or a coincidence pushes you to reconsider your path. But the most impressive thing is what happens inside you. You are less rushed. You are more at peace, even if you don't yet have a concrete answer. You feel listened to, deeply. That's when you understand that change begins in prayer, long before the external response. Fictitious testimony, I prayed without understanding what I really wanted. Hassan, 31, had been making dua for marriage for a long time. He would say, Ya Allah, give me a pious wife. But deep down, he was mainly looking to fill a void. He had had conversations that led nowhere. He was frustrated. Then, after a period of spiritual silence, he began praying again, but with a purer heart. He said one day, after Fajr prayer, Ya Allah, I don't want someone just for myself. I want a wife with whom I can please you, who will help me know you better. A few weeks later, a proposal came. Simple, clear, and unexpected. Not spectacular, but fair and balanced. He made istikhara and felt at peace. And for the first time, he didn't hesitate. Today, he says, when I changed my prayer, Allah changed my reality. What your prayers reveal about you. What you ask for in your prayer reveals the state of your heart. When your du'as become clearer, you are no longer looking for someone you like, but for someone who guides you. You no longer say, Oh Allah, I want this person. You say, Oh Allah, what is best for me? You are no longer looking for a perfect relationship. You are looking for a blessed relationship. And this clarity in prayer often reflects that your soul is ready. Ready to welcome marriage as an act of faith, not just an emotional dream. But be careful. Don't look for signs everywhere. Nor should you fall into the opposite extreme, interpreting every dream every sentence, every event as a divine message. Clarity doesn't come from fantasy or obsession. It comes from the calm that your prayer brings you.
5. The people around you begin to prepare you. Allah also works through others. There comes a time in life when you notice a subtle but constant change in those around you. People who had never previously discussed the subject of marriage with you slowly begin to talk about it. Sometimes seriously, sometimes jokingly. Your friends, your parents, your imam, a colleague, a distant cousin. As if they had all agreed that you should finally look in that direction. And you ask yourself, why now? Why is everyone talking about this? Is it just a coincidence? Or is Allah trying to tell me something? The sign is subtle but very common. Because sometimes Allah is preparing you for a new stage through the voices of those around you. Allah also guides through people, Allah says in the Quran. And we have appointed for every prophet enemies from among mankind and the jinn. Surah Al-An'am 6-112. But conversely, He also places human allies in your life. People who unknowingly serve as earthly messengers. They guide you, encourage you, and advise you, without even being aware of the divine plan that is unfolding. Islam recognizes that the people around us can be means asbab, through which Allah acts. A sudden change in your surroundings. Here are some concrete examples of this type of collective preparation. Your mother, who had avoided the subject of marriage for years, starts talking to you about someone she met. A friend says to you, "I saw you in a dream with a wife. Strange, isn't it?" An acquaintance suggests a serious meeting, without you even asking. Those around you begin to say to you, "You've changed. It seems like you're ready now." And what's striking is that you don't provoke these conversations. They come to you, again and again. And little by little, you understand, maybe this isn't a coincidence. Maybe Allah is planning something. Allah aligns the inner and the outer. In the previous signs, we were mainly talking about what's happening inside you. Inner peace, clarity of prayer, emotional maturity. But here, we're talking about what's happening around you. As if Allah were aligning your environment with what's happening in your heart. You feel things are getting easier. People are encouraging you at the right time. You are no longer alone in this project. And this is exactly what a hadith says. When Allah wishes good for His servant, He makes the path to that good easy for him. Reported by Al-Bukhari. And often, this ease begins with others reaching out to you. Differentiate between social pressure and divine encouragement. But be careful. There is a major difference between toxic social pressure and true providential support. Social pressure, spiritual support, imposes a deadline or social norm, encourages you to reflect without forcing you, makes you feel guilty, encourages you gently, bases it on age or what others are doing, bases it on your real well-being and balance, pushes you to make dangerous compromises, reminds you of Allah and the wisdom of choice. Good signs don't crush you, they reassure you. When Allah guides you through others, you feel calm, not anxiety. Fictitious testimony. Everyone got involved at the same time. Rania, 33, had put marriage on hold. Too many past hurts, too many bad experiences. One day, out of the blue, her older sister told her about a serious brother. The next day, her uncle called to say, "A family told me about you. You should think about it." And that week, even her manager told her, "You have a different energy. It seems like you're going to settle down." She smiled, but inside, something lit up. She began to make dua, sincerely, without fear. And a few weeks later,
She met someone with whom everything was crystal clear. Did people force her? No. They were simply the discreet instruments through which Allah prepared his heart. Why is this sign important? Because sometimes you don't see that you're ready. You're so afraid of suffering, of failing, of being rejected, that you hide behind waiting. But Allah sends you people who remind you, you are not alone. Maybe this is the time. And when these voices are kind, wise, and sincere, they awaken in you a courage you had buried. You have just heard 5 signs that may appear when Allah wants you to get married. But be careful, these are not fixed rules, nor guarantees. They are not boxes to check or instructions. They are keys to understanding spiritual markers. They can appear together, separately, or in an order that only you understand. But the most important thing is to understand the spirit behind these signs. Allah does not impose. He proposes. He opens. He prepares. These signs do not mean it's now or never. You may see these signs, but not yet be ready. You may not see them at all, and still be in Allah's benevolent gaze. Because it is not you who chooses the moment, it is He. And His timing is perfect. Not too soon, not too late, just at the right time, even if it's not the one you imagined. Allah says, perhaps you hate something, although it is good for you. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:216. And in another verse, He has set a term for everything. Surah At-Talaq 65:3. Don't rush. Don't despair. If you haven't seen any signs yet, it's not rejection. Perhaps it's a time of preparation. A time when Allah is shaping you in silence, protecting you without your knowledge, and delaying in order to better offer. Don't let society or social media rob you of your inner peace. Remember, in Islam, marriage is noble, but it's not a race. True honor is waiting with faith, not just getting married to do like everyone else. The Prophet said, marriage is part of my sunnah. Whoever turns away from it is not part of me. Ibn Majah. But he also said, the strong believer is more beloved to Allah than the weak believer, although there is good in both. Sahih Muslim. So what matters is not your current situation, but your state of faith in that situation. If you remain patient, dignified, and turned toward Allah, you are already on the right path, even if you are still alone. Let Allah write your story. You don't need to understand everything now. You don't need to control everything. All you need is a sincere heart, a tongue that invokes, and a mind that trusts. And whoever puts his trust in Allah, He is sufficient for him. Surah At-Talaq 65:3. Call to action. What to do now? Here are 4 simple actions you can start today. Make dua every day, sincerely, even if you don't yet know what to ask for. Make istikhara whenever a serious opportunity arises. Draw closer to Allah in your daily life, your prayer, your behavior, your choices. Keep your heart open, but your faith firm. Don't close the door out of fear. Don't open it haphazardly either. And if you want to take away just one thing from this video, it's this. When Allah wants to unite you with someone, He begins by uniting you with Himself. So whether your marriage comes in a month, a year, or in a still prolonged silence, know that you haven't missed a thing. You are exactly where you need to be. Keep moving forward, and let Allah surprise you.